Welcome to the latest episode of Templar Talks. As you can see, we are doing our very best to prevent you seeing the state of the the studio. It will eventually. This background will change. It is all an illusion. Don't worry. We appreciate you tuning in regardless. So obviously we've been at some great events. We've also got a lot of cool events coming up. So to kick things off with that. Attended already. What have we attended? So we've done 2 RCQs, or 3 RCQs. So we did Skyward Fire Games RCQ a couple of weeks ago, last week. Mm-hmm. And then we've just attended the AXION weekend, which had 3 RCQs technically, but several over the weekend. There are videos up for all of the roundups on those on our YouTube channel, so please do check them out and let us know what you think. But we will of course go into the the results and how those turned out for the team. And obviously, coming up, we've got a lot of exciting bits and bobs. We've got the East Anglian doubleheader on the 9th and 10th. Langdon Fire Games. Langdon Games is the 9th of March. We're going to have a roundup video. We're not going to be streaming it. However, on the 10th of March, we are going to be streaming the Skyward Fire Games RCQ. Myself and Todd will be on the desk providing play-by-play commentary. It'll mainly be loose play-by-play commentary, but we'll get there. And we're also going to be live on the 22nd with our Templar After Dark show. Following F&M, we'll be live to we've got a few cool new segments that are going to be exclusive to After Dark, so we're going to be previewing them this time, and that will obviously lead up to the 24th of March. Oh my gosh, there's so much shit coming up, which is going to be the Athena Games RCQ, covered by myself and Pro Tour competitor Raoul Zimmerman. All-round good guy. That's definitely going to be the one for the insight. But we also, more importantly for right now, have some good topics to go over. So Todd, what are we going to be talking about today?
We do indeed. We got my mega modern rundown, play-by-play, what I played against, etc.
That's a bit of a spoiler, really. Why are we talking about your mega modern rundown?
Oh, yeah. Twitter drama, card visibility, standard 75k open win rates, and a new one for the podcast, Pokemon EU IC. Don't know what that is, but I'm sure Stephen will fill us in.
Well, I guess let's kick things off with the most recent and relevant of all of those. Of course, the results of the recent RCQs. We've obviously technically attended 3 as a team. To get the spoilers out of the way, of those 3 RCQs we've attended, we have secured 2 slots.
Yep.
It's a bit of a no, it's not actually a letdown. It's incredible, but I did just to put a bit more context to it. The Axion weekend had 8 slots available, of which we got 1. So that was a little it would have been nice to get to. Obviously, Skyward was on 1 slot RCQ, which Phil Mead took down handedly with a deck he's barely played. He was on Boros Convoke. And I think he said he played 10 games of it prior.
Which is 10 more than I had, and I got to the quarterfinals, so...
yeah. It was... I think it was definitely a learning experience for Standard. I went into the tournament... I was 2-0, I think. I won my first 2 rounds. And I punted round 3 and round 4, and then 5 I was just like, I can't make top 8 anyway, I don't care. But I didn't even realise... I was playing Blue White Soldiers, and I can't even remember the name of the card. I didn't realise it had a disturb mechanic. Hadn't even read the card. So I was just like, oh, that's gone to the bin, never mind. And could have probably got some extra value there. So reading the card does usually explain the card.
But general overview, how was Standard? Like, did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it?
It was better than I thought it would be, but it feels like there are no real mid-range decks, in my opinion. In that... Soldiers / Convoke matchup or mirror, any of those kind of shit out creature decks is absolutely miserable. You just sit there building a wall and then kind of go, oh, well, I can, 20. I literally played Phil, I think in round 3 or 4. Round 4. Was it round 4? Yes, round 4. And, the first game was literally just shitting out creatures, and I won purely because the first game purely because I had 2 wedding announcements one after the other.
Yeah.
So I shit out more creatures that got bigger quicker, and then attacked, and you count it, and it's like, oh yeah, that's exact. Never mind. And I think that was the same with you played Phil in the quarter in a Boros Convoke mirror.
Overall standard was a good experience. I think I enjoyed the matchups that weren't the mirror, but it did feel mirror breaker light. Yeah, when you just spread out your 13 creatures in front of your opponent's 15 creatures, and you're like, yeah, another turn I can't attack.
Yeah.
Until it felt a lot like the Rhino mirror in Modern pre Leyline, where it's just like, oh, you drew more rhinos than I did.
Yeah.
I guess I lose.
I think there's a big issue with. I don't know, like the power level of standard is in a very weird place because of this long rotation, and also we're seeing a lot of cards that we've seen for a long time. I think we've spoken about it before, but when I fired Arena back up and installed it again, when standard was announced, basically I already had most of the mono red deck because I had the mono red deck a year and a half ago, and it's mostly the same cards. So that's a little like I don't like that. I like a bit of movement in formats. I know some people don't like the MH rotation of Modern, but I actually quite like Modern ebbing and flowing and archetypes still being playable, but with standard there's a smaller card pool, which means you are more limited. But as you say, I think it was better than I thought it would be. I'm looking forward to playing on Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not playing, but
no.
Because as we go on to the results of AXION, Tod made the semi-finals of the Mega Modern, which was a 4-slot RCQ. So qualified to the AXION Invitational and also secured your way to Naples in May. Is it May?
Yeah, May half term.
Yeah, end of May. End of
May.
Yeah. No, because there's an AXION Stockton is start of May. And then Naples is end of May. Yeah, because I keep getting them mixed up. Because I think there's bank holidays near both, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. So it's kind of like, which bank holiday? But yeah, no, it should be, it should be a good rest of the season, I think. I'm hoping we can at least get one or two more people qualified for sure, to make it out to Naples. But going over AXION, I guess we'll round up the whole weekend. But to start with the Mega Modern run, I think before we go into Todd's run, actually, we should also highlight Michael came very, very close to top 8. I think he was top 16.
Yeah.
He was basically, he had 2 winning ends.
Yeah.
Which was really unfortunate.
No,
sorry, he didn't. He had 1 winning in.
He had one winning in, yeah. So what about your travel down? I mean, go and watch that video, but what did we think overall of Shepherd's Bush?
Yeah. I mean, love the store. Darksphere was great. Location was good as well, like within reason, but the last hour of the journey is horrendous from a car perspective.
Yeah.
I think maybe rail strikes affected the amount of traffic there was. We couldn't actually get trains because on the Sunday back it would have just been buses. Unfortunately, we didn't get too much of it on camera, but we did. We had a James Gurney filled small hatchback. James Gurney filled? No, so a fully filled small hatchback owned and driven by James Gurney, to clarify that, which was a terrifying experience. I am not a good passenger. I usually drive to most events, and I did not have a comfortable experience. And I was in the front, so I probably had the best of the
best of the passenger experience.
Yeah, so for me, I get car sick, and I had quite a bad car accident when I was 18, so I don't like being a passenger. I like to be in control of the motor vehicle I'm in. And particularly on the way there, it was more frustration of, why are we going 55 tailgating a lorry when there's no traffic in the right lane? On the way back, it was more, if we went over 55, the steering wheel would start swaying a little bit, and you'd start, getting those jolts back into the lane. So it wasn't great.
But you didn't have to pay the low emission zone fee, right?
Yeah,
that was the benefit.
That was the big win. But in general, I think Darksphere was way bigger than I ever could have anticipated it being. It was a really, really cool store. The drinks and snacks were plentiful and ridiculously cheap.
Yeah.
I expected Central London to be £2.50 for a bottle of water at a game store, and it wasn't. It was it was really affordable.
Yeah,
crazy amount of stock, good pricing on most of the stuff as well, like singles. Cartipper were there as well. Yeah, they had Lorcana Pokemon. That was basically what was bought from the team and us traveling. I don't think any Magic product was bought, but Cartipper were there, which was cool as well.
Yeah.
They had a lot of good stuff. I definitely think to throw a little bit of shade, I think Cartipper are definitely just bringing over the shit they want to get rid of at this point when they come to Action events, because I'm seeing a lot of the same cards, but it's their collection is unbelievable. So when I say that, like the selection they have, like they had loads of power. Like if you wanted to ball out after winning, like you could, which I'm not sure if they did at other Axion events if they had power. Previously, like they've always had dual lands, but
I don't think I've seen power. I've always seen dual lands, but from a perspective of a bit of a grinder, right, who plays in a team, I'm there looking for my fourth gleeful demolition or whatever. I'm like, well, you have nothing for me, but if I wanted, I could buy Mox.
I think that was the problem. Like usually you get the contrast of Axion, who typically open a lot of new boxes and have a lot of the latest single products there, and then you have Cartipper for I'm looking for a JSS promo Lord of Atlantis or something like that, which I think I've bought stuff like that from them at previous events, whereas Axion are kind of you go over there and they've got all the latest Surveil lands and stuff like that.
That's actually what I tried to pick up but couldn't.
I was trying to pick up a Return to Ravnica. No, Ravnica Remastered foil Sacred Foundry in retro, and they didn't have any of that. You could see they'd opened, they had all the originals in foil, but that specific variant they did not have. So it was a great venue, great experience in general.
Still the best experience you can have that we can get, right, without GPs. So
and I mean, I think this new model worked quite well, and it was also great to catch up. Like a lot of the familiar faces you expect to see at Axion events were still there. We got dinner on the first night with George from Chad Magic. It's always great to see him, and Will Hall from Will Hall.
The Will Hall experience, which I got in the hotel room.
So it was definitely a good weekend. But in terms of the gameplay outside of your Omega Modern run, Dan top 8'd the Modern RCQ, and Michael, Dan, friend of the Templar, the bald man, as I always refer to him, and Michael came very close to top 8 on both days. I think he was, he got a box day 1 and the maximum amount of ticks day 2 without top 8. So
he got really unlucky, I think.
He did. But your Mega Modern run, so what deck did you pick?
Right, so I this is really bad, isn't it? I think I am a busy person, and I didn't really have a window of opportunity other than Thursday night, the night before we travelled down. And I just put in the group chat, I said, what should I play tomorrow?
Well, I'm glad, but I'm glad you did, because I think you were going to play... What were you going to play? You were going to play something else.
I was going to play Murktide or Breach.
And a lot of it was kind of like, maybe don't do that. And I think this, I think sometimes you do need to listen to the voice of reason, because to illustrate the parallel weekends, a lot of people said, don't do that, try 4-color control. You did, you top 4 the Mega Modern. James Gurney gave us his deck choices, and a lot of people said don't do that, and he went 0-3 drop on both days, right? So obviously there's more to it than that, So I do like to name on that.
So I went with 4-color control, just grabbed a list off MTG top 8, made a couple of tweaks, thinking about the new cards, particularly Lane Island for the Guild Pact, which we spoke about a couple of times. And just went with it, really. Went with the answer deck, and it did really well. I played against an interesting control deck round 1, which was a counterbalance control deck. I'm not going to lie, the minute he played that card, I looked it up and I was like, is this modern legal? Of course it is. Not a great card though. I liked it. It was spicy, but I dispatched that pretty. Prismatic Ending is just a card, right? Get rid of that. Played against Instant Reanimator, which was another deck that I would have considered playing because it was peaking up on MTG top 8 thanks to the Surveil lands and seeing them in action. I think that deck's got some legs. I'll dabble there in the future, I think. Then I played against Living End. I'm going to get up my list now because I can't remember what I played against. I think it was Living End next. Yeah, played against Living End. Very much my sideboard was teched against Cascade decks, thinking about Domain Rhinos and the fact that Living End has a good matchup against Rhinos, so there's going to be lots of that. Felt really strong. Got main deck Teferi, got Chalice, got Tidebinder. Comfortable with that. Hardest match of the day by far, round 4, Murktide, because you're just duking it out one for one in until someone gets ahead.
I guess a lot of their resources are cheaper as well.
Yeah, it feels rough. But I managed to eke that out. But that was definitely the hardest matchup of the day, apart from losing. Played against Living End again. Same thing. And then managed to ID, which feels good. I don't think I've ever been able to do that. Yeah. And I can see why people have such a good time when they do, because I just got 2.5 hours off, which kind of set me up for the quarterfinals. Domain Rhinos, finally hit Domain Rhinos in the quarterfinals. Deck we've been talking about, cards we've been talking about. Managed to pretty handily lose game 1 and had to really dig deep
in game 2.
And ended up stuck on 2 lands for I think 3 turns.
I think the thing is though, right, like you got stuck on 2 lands in the game 2, which is why you had to eke it out. But I feel that game 3, obviously we don't know the Rhino players' insight, but I feel if I'd been sat on that side of the table, I would have felt like I was just throwing myself into a brick wall because there was nothing. I don't think there was anything he could do. And there were situations where you were like Besajuing like his Scions, Besajuing his guild packs on a loop with Ren.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think he'd got through 3 or 4 Scions. He was binning Cascade spells because there was a Teferi, a Chalice.
Again, Surveil lands look good in Rhinos as well. They look good in Reanimator and they look good in Rhinos.
Surveil lands, I think, are a great addition in general. I played Rhinos day 2 and they felt good. 100% felt good. Until you draw them, then they feel bad. But like,
you know. If they're in your deck, they're good. Yeah. I dispatched that game quarterfinals. It was tough, losing game 1 and then having to win game 2 and 3.
Sure.
But like you said, I've pretty much got a commanding position game 3 behind. I think I played the Teferi and then a Chalice. Which just kind of shores up the
I think
Rhinos
actually you
bit.
played a Chalice, then a Teferi, then he got rid of the Chalice and you played another Chalice. If I remember correctly, it really was
And then I had the bindings for the Scions and the guild packs and eventually the Besaiju. But yeah, I couldn't give you much of an insight on that matchup outside of the 2 games I ended up playing. I then played Domain Rhinos in the semis again, and categorically, we've been listening to some League of Legends podcasts, right, as a group about coaching, and I very much went into this weekend with a proper positive mindset. I wasn't phased all weekend. I was like, just going to play the game, focus on turn by turn, think ahead, react well, don't impulse react, and I fully put the result on the back of that, being methodical and process based. The semi-finals, that was all gone. I won that quarters. It was a hard matchup, or not a hard matchup, but a hard match. And I was like, oh, I've qualified for Naples. And then I was like, but I'm going to get a sheet. And then they were like, oh, are you ready? You can go for a wee or whatever. Have the judge was like, go get water. And I was like, no, sit me down, let's go. And I just wasn't thinking about what I was playing. I wasn't thinking about what they were going to play next. And I deserved to lose that game.
I think shout out to Goldie from Chad Magic. He played it very, very well.
Oh, yeah,
There were some extra elements to it in that your game, I believe, went on about 40 minutes longer than the other quarterfinals. So they had a very substantial break.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, I think compared to your first Rhinos opponent who played quite defensively, Jack played very aggressively.
Oh, 100%,
almost to the point of just like, if you have it, you have it. Like, I'm just going to try and do this.
Yeah.
Which I think is sometimes... I think with the problem with domain, right, like the domain decks in general, is a lot of the time you are just racing, like foot to the floor, I'm going to race. And he had that mindset and it worked really well into a control deck.
But not for his final, sorry.
For sure.
But I think it's like he played it incredibly well, definitely. But there, from my side, it definitely felt like there was other factors to that loss, and quite frankly, I didn't really care because I think a qualification.
That's a bit of a problem with the new format. I'm not, I don't want to throw any shade at AXION because it was an unbelievable event and they do so much for the Magic community. But having no stakes on the semi is weird because obviously, if you win it, you get a trophy and an uncut sheet. If you come second, you get the same as third and fourth. And if you come fifth through eighth, you get the same. That's fine. So the quarters, you could see everyone was like super stressed in those quarterfinals, and then it was kind of like just relief at the semi-finals. Well, we can just play. It doesn't really matter. And I think perhaps for your opponent in the semi-final, that helped because they'd had a break, and it's just kind of like, well, this game doesn't matter, but because you went into it like, this game doesn't matter, I'm not going to take a break, then that mental fatigue hits of like, oh, well, actually, I don't even know what I'm doing right now. But it's still an unbelievable result. And, as we've just highlighted there, the top four was the big goal, qualifying to the AXION Invitational, travel bursary, and, of course, qualification to Naples.
Well, that was my personal goal, was to just make top 8. And then it was very much a discussion with people about how seriously do I want to take the quarterfinals? Do I want the qualification? And I decided that I wanted it. And I really played to get it, and kept that mental attitude and the rigor that I was putting myself under. This turn matters. What are they going to play? This turn matters. But then on the flip side, I definitely saw, and this is kind of a little bit off topic because we haven't put it down, but at other points during the day, definitely the win and ins for the top 8, I saw some real kind of behaviour from Magic players about achievements and personal achievements that I don't think is really healthy.
I agree.
Like tears, frustration, and I get it, I care. Do you know what I mean? I want to make top 8. I want to get the qualification, but I'm also hyper aware that the game is unforgiving, and you will draw bad hands. You will be on the rough end, and people will want it more than you. Their decks will be kinder to them than yours will be to you. And I just think maybe let go of the emotion.
I mean, one person I think, I want to give him a shout out who I think handles this incredibly well, particularly, I hope they don't find my comment condescending at all because of their age, is Nico. Nico's first year of uni, and when he loses a game, his attitude is very much, I played that game as well as I could have done. It wasn't meant to be. Sometimes the cards don't come the way you want them to be. So you can see the frustration, but also there's the acceptance, which I think is what allows those bounce backs. He dropped out in Ghent and then went and won a legacy tournament the next day. Same thing. He had an awful day 1 at AXION, top 8 at the day 2 after losing the first round. Like, it's there is a lot of, not quality, necessity in having that attitude, and it makes it. Honestly, it makes you a lot more pleasant to be around, to be completely honest, because
definitely.
no one wants to be around an angry salt fest. You know what I mean?
Or to use a League of Legends or a poker terminology, tilt, right?
Yeah.
And we all have internal tilt, right? We've all got our frustrations, and sometimes it doesn't go our way, and we have to reset. And it's easy for me to say after a tournament where my deck did what I wanted it to do, But there's been scenarios where it's been the seating lottery, it's been that, and I've been frustrated. But I think it's when you start expressing it to your opponent or openly in the room that it actually changes the environment. And it very much felt winning in the environment around those top tables was not conducive with a nice place.
Yeah.
And I just think it's one to watch as for players from a personal standpoint. Am I investing too much in this game or this result or this tournament? Because you'll have your ups and downs, You'll have your tops, your peaks, like me this weekend. But I've had some awful tournaments for season after season, and it's just making sure that you're still around to have those highs, right? And you're not tilting off the face of the earth.
Yeah, I think we won't go too much into it because I don't want to start any drama, to be completely honest. But some of the behaviour was honestly this was probably the spikiest tournament I've ever experienced. To highlight it, and I don't even know what I can say, if I'm honest, without offending people, but there was one situation where a player near me was a minute or two late because they'd been in the bathroom, and as soon as they sat down without any hello, how's your morning gone, the opponent was just judge, and call him for a game loss for being late, which is fine, it's in the rules, right? I get it, but I think there just has to be more level of respect towards people. I know, I felt really bad as well for Dan in the top 8. He had a very unfortunate situation. His opponent was great, honestly, absolutely great. But one of the spectators was effectively waiting for Dan to make a game rule violation. So Dan had forgot to uncompanion Jagantha due to his sideboarding. And if it's noticed early, it's just a warning. So his opponent seized away a Force Figure, so everyone looking knew he'd made that mistake. I didn't even realise. I didn't even think about it watching. But if you point it out, a judge will come over and just give you a warning. But unfortunately, one of the spectators waited until Dan put it in his hand and then called the judge, which means it is a game loss, and he was already one game down. So it's stuff like that that's really unfortunate. I'm sure Dan will potentially get tilted that I've even mentioned this because I know he blames himself, and I agree. I take that mindset. It's my fault. I think those situations, I think they're maybe they're not as unhealthy because that is just trying to give your friend the best lookout. But it is that spiky environment that can breed those unpleasant situations.
Or looking for the negative. But on the flip side, every opponent I played against, though I was definitely witness some things that maybe choices I wouldn't make that don't align with my moral compass, my opponents were fantastic.
I'd say exactly the same as well. I had a very pleasant time. I met, there were a lot of very, very nice opponents that I played against. I think my highlight to bring it to a higher note, day one I ended up going 3-4. I played it out with Merfolk. I was 3-3. I think I could have gone 4-3, but I found out in round 7 that there's no prizing for positive. So I was just chatting with my opponent, going through the because it's kind of oh well, never mind then. But definitely the highlight was I was paired into Pleasant Kenobi in one of the rounds who was playing Death and Taxes but had splashed blue for what's the card?
Lavinia. Yeah.
And because of that, myself playing Merfolk had Island Walk, which was kind of funny, and it just made the game very easy when you can't, you know, your
But a bit of a
creatures can't be
name,
blocked.
Pleasant Kenobi. You
Yeah,
know,
it was good to see. It was good to see people like that though at the event.
And equally, fans of the podcast really.
Yeah, it was really nice to meet some people that we haven't met before.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was generally, all in all, you know, taking that negativity away, it was very good vibes. Like everyone was super friendly. The staffing team was super friendly. It was really heartwarming as well. Day 2, I did the rebound. After, so I went 1-2 start, and then my game was going to a draw, so I just scooped to my opponent because I was like, what's the point? 1-2-1 for both of us means we're both fucked, so whatever. I'll do the rebound. And my opponent in the 3rd round, I offered them an ID, and they were just like, what's an ID? And it was their first RCQ.
Oh wow!
So they didn't know. So shout out. I can't remember who it was. One of the fantastic AXION staff came over, helped explain like what would happen if we ID'd. He went to the prize wall. Like it was a good situation, and he my opponent came back over, and what he wanted was so if you split, it's 50 tickets each, and he wanted a Doctor Who card that was 60 tickets, and he was kind of like, I guess I didn't want to play, but like I guess I'll have to, and I was just like, I'll just give you 10 tickets. I just want 2 packs of sleeves and to not play another round of Magic after this weekend. So let's just not do that.
Good to meet new players though, right?
Yeah,
it's good to know that we're still a community that is getting people involved.
And
right?
I think the top 8 of I don't want to offend anyone again, but the top 8 of the modern RCQ, I believe there were 2 players that were kind of like 18 and under in Nico, and I can't remember the name of the player that qualified, but it's great to see younger players playing at this higher level, because that's what we need to continue keeping
100%.
Comp Magic alive, you know, rather than just fucking Commander, basically, because that's what WotC want. So yeah, it was all in all really, really good vibes. Really, really good.
Talking of what's he want?
Well, yeah. What's he want? A lot of things, really, don't they? I don't know. It's hard. It's hard. But anyway, what should we cover next?
Well, what's he want is direct to player cards.
Well, yeah. Sure. Of course. Yeah, I mean, if they could, they'd reprint the reserve list, right? Like that's their dream.
In how many different versions?
Well, yeah. I think there's like 3 or 4 versions coming for every fetch land, right? In the next set.
In the MH set, right?
Yeah. Standard, old border, extended, and full art.
Wow.
So. Yeah.
And that's what this Twitter drama is all about, right?
No. Oh, that's where you're going with that. No, not at all. No.
It's not about versions and visibility of cards.
Oh, okay. No. So I've caught you off guard here with my terrible agenda notes. See, look, we don't edit any of this out. It's just rambling idiots that have no idea what they're doing.
Oh, Stephen wants to talk about the Twitter drama about card visibility.
No. So
is that Fortsy's Japanese? Is that a duress? Is that an inquisition?
So I guess it ties in a little bit, but one of the players that attended the AXION event posted after the event saying, effectively, I don't want to go into all of it, but because they have visual impairment, they struggle to see foils and all. Like it's a visual indicator of seeing a card they recognise, and that's how they associate it. And I think that's a fine statement to make. I think why I wanted to address this as Twitter drama, as we usually address something we don't agree with, is their solution to this is that they have asked WotC in an open letter to ban all foils, alt arts, etc. from comp play, which I think is kind of never going to happen. And I think, you know, for someone that does like my special variants, I don't like the idea of it, and I think the interesting thing is because of the visual clarity of it, they have no problem with foreign language cards, which for me is more of an issue because I would much prefer to read a card rather than judge. Can you Oracle text?
Yeah.
And for me, you know, associating being able to check a piece of cardboard and, that is that one? Yep, sure. Rather than just seeing a white blank text screen on a phone that a judge has flashed at me for 20 seconds.
Sure.
Is a lot better. So I think it's a bit of a... I sympathise with people that have that issue, but I also think it's a bit of a crazy ask.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for accessibility. You know, we want players to be able to play the game regardless of whatever disability they may have.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting. I see their issue, right? Their concern. And you know, from someone who doesn't have a visual impairment, I struggle to recognise cards because of the I'm right, sure. You also...
Yeah, I mean, I have a visual impairment.
I wouldn't refer to it as a visual impairment, but I guess, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I've had to look up Gatherer this weekend, just gone, you know, in games. I don't think it's that. Again, I don't call a judge for that, which is probably my bad. Probably I should. But I often will say to my opponent, do you mind if I just check Gatherer for what you've just played? Because I haven't seen it in a while, or I don't know what that card does, or I don't know if that's legal in this format. Yeah. And I think that's fine. I think that's the way we should approach it. I think deck expression for people is a big draw of the game, and I would personally, my personal opinion would be that I would want us to be able to have deck expression in foils, in alt arts, in foreign language. I think that's fine.
But I think you know to I think the argument just falls apart when you look at a card like. Okay, so say we ban all alt arts and all full art cards and all foils and all other languages. Chord of Calling has 3 different artworks in standard printing. Are they all okay? If you know what I mean, if it's a visual recognizer of I recognize the original artwork, where do you draw the line? And I think that's the problem I have with it is like it's just it is just a non-starter because there's no way you would ever be able to do it or kind of enforce it because you know most people I think would just quit Magic. You know what I mean? If you had to have matching play sets of OG art for every card or whatever, like it just can't happen.
It makes it difficult to play comp events for sure. And what do Pokemon do? They do.
So no. It turns out this rule is wrong, as I have been stepping into the world of Pokemon. It's regional, so if you're in Europe, you can have German cards.
Oh, okay.
But if you're in Japan, you can't have English or German cards. You have to have Japanese cards. That's as far as I understand.
Yeah.
It
And
anyway.
how do you feel about? Not that I have an opinion, but what do you? If that was the case for Magic, would that be fine?
I mean, from my point of view, I think it would be easier for me, but I also don't care.
Yeah.
I have no problem asking a judge, and you know, I know some of the discussion here and the points the player in question made were that you use extra, you know, it's more fatiguing to like look up cards, which I agree to a point, but you know, I don't. It's like, where do you draw the line? Like if someone's just playing chess and between every move they want to look up like openers to work out which opener you're doing, like that's a memory, that's a skill of memorizing it. So like if you look at a game of chess, almost all of it is like it's memory, and you know, in terms of openers, and there's a strategic element. So to an extent, recognizing these cards and being able to recall the cards and stuff like that, you know, Flesh and Blood, where you put cards at the bottom of your library, a skill of Flesh and Blood is being able to memorize the order of your library.
It's never going to be a level playing field. I think that's an interesting argument, but it's never going to be a level playing field. That you don't know what's going on in people's personal lives. You don't know how well people eat and drink. You don't know how well people's mindsets are to losing or making mistakes.
But equally, I sympathise. I think we both sympathise with people that have the issues. But I would compel anyone that does have an issue, please do just take time to get a judge over, because if a judge shows you Oracle text even if the card is in English and it's just an alt art variant, the time will be added on. So you're not penalising yourself by constantly and I know it's maybe a little hassle and it's a bit of a faff, but it's an unfortunate situation, but I think it's just, and I think it's not going to change.
Yeah, what we've kind of been talking about for most of the rundown of the AXION event is communication is really important. Communicate with your opponent at all. I think that's actually what the head judge said. Right? Is that that communicating with your opponent is the best thing you should be doing at all points in the game. I think another kind of thing that we haven't touched on and won't touch on is remembering life totals, or checking life totals with your opponent, checking what cards are in play, what cards are in the graveyard, writing things down when they happen in the game that are important to not just that game but something to you personally, right? The way I make notation informs how I reflect on a tournament at the end, right? I did this mistake, I'm writing it down so I don't do that mistake again. All of those things are really important. Communicating with your opponent, communicating with your future self. This is something you did, Todd, that you could do better next time is going to be important. And if you are having any issue, like whether it's from an impairment, the first place to start is you can help yourself, come up with strategies, and then you can better ask the community to support those as well. But
I think to an extent this is what has been done, right? This is the ask of the community. I just think it's a hell of an ask, right? That's the problem. But I don't know.
We'll see how Wizards, if they action anything. I think a good metric would be Hearthstone had a person who had a program read the cards to them, so they didn't have to use their eyes, which I think was a really interesting. I don't think Hearthstone did that. I think that was a community mod that helped that player access Hearthstone, which is just amazing, right? And if things like that can exist, there's no reason it couldn't exist in Magic.
For sure. But anyway, moving on to Standard again, 75k open, Magic on Chicago. We have some numbers,
some stats. Is this Frank Carson again?
It is Frank Carson, the go-to for all stats. I recommend following them on Twitter. It's a hell of a resource. I mean, I don't think there's anything really crazy to cover here other than, Esper mid-range, Convoke, Domain Ramp, Azorius Control were kind of dominating the meta. That was a good 50% of the share. Bant Toxic seems to have fallen off a bit, and Dimir mid-range seems to have picked up. But the big kind of interesting parts are Sultai Reanimator had the highest win rate of 61.2%.
Wow.
Despite it only had 50 games. So with a grain of salt, 50 matches, sorry. And then after that, Azorius mid-range, another, lower played deck.
Outlier,
had a pretty good win rate. But Dimir mid-range and Azorius Control appear to be those solid 55% decks with Convoke just behind. I think it's pretty interesting to see. Usually you see, say, like with the Murktide in Modern, its win rate was always like 48%, 47%, despite having 1,000 games or whatever. Here, all the popular decks in Standard appear to be over 50% win rate, which is quite interesting to me. So it does feel like people are maybe trying to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, and it is definitely not sticking. Well, there's decks like Esper Control, 35 games, 42% win rate, and then you've got Azorius Control, 55% win rate.
So stop adding black to your decks.
Well, I think that's, I guess what I wanted to talk about with these numbers more than anything is, unlike Modern at the moment, where it does feel like you can maybe steal some stuff with outlier decks, here a lot of what's being tried feels like it's not working. It feels like these mainstay choices in the format are going to be a bit of a problem for a while. We'll see if Convoke falls off with the addition of loads of lockdowns.
Well, I was going to mention this. Standard was good, and one of the things that felt good about Boris Convoke was it felt like a Pioneer deck, right?
Yeah.
It came out the gates in a way that I don't think another aggro deck in Standard can do, which kind of stifles any creativity in the aggro area. Because why would you play an aggro deck that can't do what the Boris Convoke deck does, right? Like I think it was I was watching Phil's semi-finals and final games, and he was doing something that I'd done once in my games. He managed to do it twice in back-to-back games, consistency, where he played his 1-drop, and then turn 2, played a second 1-drop, tapped 3 things to put counter on his Warden, sacked something to Gleeful Demolition, tapped 3 creatures again to put another counter on the Warden. That's double scry, double counter. And I was just like, that is powerful magic, and that there isn't another deck that can do that in Standard.
And it's the same thing with the Azorius Control on the other end of the field, though. It's like when you have these powerful magic cards against that, like Temporary Lockdown, like Sunfall, like there's so many board wipes right now in white, basically. No More Lies is a hell of a card.
It's polarizing, right?
Yeah. It does feel like these archetypes are going to be here for a little while. I don't anticipate anything really breaking the format. I mean, we may be proved wrong. It might, change.
Well, we'll see what
locally
comes next, right?
Yeah,
and your local meta game. Let's see what comes out the woodwork. But sadly, I don't think there's anything that's going to compete with those polarizing points. I thought it was Bank Toxic. I liked Bank Toxic. I thought its matchup against Domain gave it some staying power. Yeah, but the win rates on that are not impressive.
No, they are not. No, they are not. So I guess to finish things off, Pokemon EUIC, the bit of the curveball for this Magic the Gathering focused podcast. I've been dipping my toe into the murky waters of Pokemon TCG, and I think it's semi-relevant because the company that runs the Pokemon Bigger Tournaments Tournament Center is taking over Legacy's contract for the Magic tournaments. So Pokemon EUIC, I had joked about getting a ticket and never having played Pokemon, just sending it and going to a European Championship. I think that's hilarious that you don't have to qualify. I still think
would
it's
have made
hilarious.
A good video, Stephen.
Yes, yeah. But I didn't get a ticket because both day 1 of the wave being available and day 2 of the wave being available of tickets, I think it was 1,000 tickets per day.
Wow.
They both sold out. Day 2. Day 1, I fumbled a bit. I didn't really know what to expect from this website. Yeah. Day 2, I was in the line 2 seconds past it went live in terms of I'd filled out the whole form. I'm in, didn't get a ticket.
Wow.
And to highlight why I worry about this for Magic, I used to, once upon a time, resell shoes. Mm-hmm. I have never missed a Yeezy sneaker release, ever. Like, I have always managed to get them, multiple pairs, resell them for profit. Same with Supreme Streetwear. I have got box logos on box logos. I have never missed a Black Friday sale from Air New Zealand when they used to offer 200 tickets worldwide, $200 return flights to LA. If I can't get these tickets, who the fuck is getting these tickets? Like, I am used to completing a checkout fast, right? Like, I don't understand how the demand or how they can't meet the demand.
I was going to say, I can understand the demand of Pokemon,
but if the demand's that high, like
brand,
I mean, Pokemon EUIC is the XL Centre in London. Surely, if 2,000 people are going to, like, in under a minute, can't you book out another hall? Like, where does it become worth it? I think it's been interesting with AXION because they had to lower the cap of these events, which created this demand for them, so they sold out quicker than expected. But we're talking a minute, percentage of the scale of these Pokemon events, and from what I've heard in other countries, it's even worse. Like, I think the regionals in Japan, I think I've read somewhere that 15,000 people were trying to buy tickets.
Wow.
And it's a 1,000 person tournament. Yeah. So there's a lottery system.
But unlike Magic, which is the only kind of part of Magic is the card game. These, there is the Pokemon TCG, but there's other stuff happening at the UIC,
they do
right?
do the video game tournament there as well. But I just, if the demand really is that big, surely it'd be better to do it over 2 weekends.
Sure,
right?
sure.
I just,
yeah.
I mean, League of Legends is a prime example. They came and did their World shows and LEC shows in London at Wembley Arena.
Yeah.
Didn't sell out that quickly. They did it at Copper Box for MSI, sold out like that, couldn't get any tickets for finals. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So now they're going to the O2 for Worlds, right? Like, you adapt your venue based on
your
demand.
yeah.
And it's interesting to me that Pokemon seem to want... It doesn't feel like they need to falsify demand. But it feels like, man, that's hard to get tickets.
Yeah. Well, let's see if we can see some content from there and see how busy it actually is, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can... a few people I know are going to spectate. Like, you can get spectator tickets. Because there's, like, exclusive merch and all this rubbish. I don't know. I don't really care about that. But the card game itself seems fun. I'm going to be playing it a little bit more. Dipping my toe into the murky waters.
I see. I'm deep in Lorcana. That's where I am. I'm waiting for Liz and Francois to hit me up with the Lorcana tournaments.
Yeah, I think AXION are going to be doing some Lorcana organised play. We've heard some exciting whispers.
And I like that game. I do think it is Magic light. It's a little bit less.
That's why I really don't like it.
Taxing on my brain.
But I want something different. Like, if I'm stepping away from Magic, I want something that's completely different.
You mean you don't want Magic light with Disney characters?
No, and I hate, like, I've never been a fan of Disney.
Oh, right. See, The Black Cauldron, the best Disney movie.
Well, like, when I was a kid, I liked Robin Hood. I liked some of the Pixar films, but I never really went deep with, like, Jungle Book, Little Mermaid. Like, I wasn't really that interested in them. For me, it was all the puppet shows, like Captain Scarlet, Stingray, all that.
Oh, right, sure,
you know
sure,
what I mean?
sure,
that was my jam when I was growing up.
What is that?
Thunderbirds?
Thunderbirds, that's it,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
See, if we're going really far back, for me it was, what was the moon? The Clangers.
The Clangers. I do remember the Clangers.
Clangers and Biker Mice from Mars.
I remember Biker Mice from Mars as well.
Yeah.
Jason the Wheeled Warriors as well. That was a good one. But on that note, we'll save all of this waffle for After Dark for sure. This is far too unstructured.
I want to be the soup dragon from the Clangers.
And on that note, thank you very much for watching. We hope to see you at all the wonderful events we've got coming up. We hope to see you there in person. We hope you're coming and participating. Obviously, ticket links are available for Langdon Games RCQ on 9th of March, which will be tomorrow after this goes live. So hopefully there's a ticket. Skyward Fire Games on the 10th, which will be 2 days. So again, your mileage may vary. 24th of March, Athena Games RCQ, a little bit further away. Hopefully you can get a ticket for that. And obviously we will also have the 10th of March RCQ at Skyward Fire live coverage on our Twitch channel, as well as the Athena Games RCQ on 24th of March. So we hope to see you there for those. And thank you very much for getting this far on this very unorganised, rambly edition of Templar Talks. And we will see you next time. You're not saying bye?
I said peace, but you talked over me.
Goodbye.